Добре, вітаю всіх, шановні колеги. Вже 6 година, тому я думаю, що ми можемо розпочинати. Отже, мене звуть Анастасія Тичук, я методистка мережі шкіл Green Country та платформи та академії TalkEn.Cloud. І сьогодні я буду з вами на цьому вебінарі. Я вітаю вас на 4-му вебінарі курсу Teach Online like a Pro Level Up. І сьогодні ми поговоримо про викладання лексики онлайн. Але перш ніж ми перейдемо до теми вебінару, я хочу розповісти вам про TalkEn.Cloud та обговорити деякі організаційні питання. Тому давайте розпочинати. Отже, що таке TalkEn.Cloud? TalkEn.Cloud – це бібліотека інтерактивних підручників, система менеджменту навчального процесу, тобто LMS, а також TalkEn.Cloud має власний тренінговий центр, де викладачі проходять навчання. Я пропоную детальніше поговорити про окремі аспекти TalkEn.Cloud та що вона пропонує. Отже, ми розпочнемо з бібліотеки інтерактивних підручників. Отже, TalkEn.Cloud налічує десь приблизно 50 інтерактивних цифрових підручників для різних рівнів, починаючи з початкового рівня Pre-1 до рівня Advanced C1 для різних вікових категорій, від школярів, підлітків та для дорослих. Тобто всі підручники мають різне наповнення та відповідають різним віковим категоріям. Також, окрім підручників, бібліотека надає доступ до Teacher's Guide. Це деталізовані плани занять до кожного підручника, де ви можете побачити структуру заняття, додаткові інструкції, що на якому етапі заняття робити, як виконувати це завдання, які запитання можна задати учням, та додаткові посилання на якісь онлайн-ресурси. Також в інтерактивному підручнику діти, учні можуть бачити трекінг прогресу. Тобто ці інтерактивні підручники надають можливість трекінгу прогресу, тобто скільки відсотків було виконано завдання, скільки правильно було виконано, скільки неправильно. Також TalkEn.Cloud має систему тестів з автоматизованою перевіркою до кожного підручника, а також плейсмент-тест, який учні зазвичай складають на початку навчання, щоб ми могли визначити, який рівень, де який підручник підібрати. І окрім підручників та Teacher's Guide, також в бібліотеці можна знайти різні інтерактивні воркшіти за різними темами. Тобто це можуть бути воркшіти, присвячені різним святам або різним подіям по типу Євровіжн, Євробачення або щось інше. А також, якщо ви маєте аккаунт на TalkEn.Cloud, маєте підписку, то ви можете створювати власні інтерактивні воркшити та використовувати пізніше їх на своїх заняттях. Тому, якщо ви довго шукали, яку платформу використовувати та де можна створювати власні завдання, власні воркшити, TalkEn.Cloud – це для вас. Отже, поговоримо про TalkEn.Cloud з точки зору як системи менеджменту навчального процесу. Отже, TalkEn.Cloud надає можливість викладачам створювати профілі учнів, об'єднувати їх у групи або призначати індивідуальні заняття. Також тут можна знайти генерацію розкладу уроків. Тобто ви можете поставити собі розклад за вашим бажанням, тобто який ви хочете. Також на TalkEn.Cloud в цій системі LMS можна прикріплювати тести, вступні тести, тести після кожного юніта тощо. В цій системі можна побачити органайзер розкладу роботи вчителя та електронний журнал, де ви можете виставляти оцінки, додавати якісь коментарі, прикріплювати домашні завдання та надавати зворотній зв'язок учням або отримувати зворотній зв'язок від учнів. І також, як я вже зазначила, ви можете відстежувати прогрес учнів, як вони виконують завдання, скільки правильних відповідей, скільки неправильних відповідей, та дуже швидко відкривати онлайн-підручник та переходити до заняття. Отже, тому раджу всім спробувати. І зараз я хочу обговорити деякі організаційні питання. Отже, після завершення цього вебінару всі бажаючі зможуть отримати сертифікат, але сертифікат є платним. Вартість одного сертифіката 100 гривень. Тому, якщо ви бажаєте отримати сертифікат, коли ви реєструвалися на вебінар, вам мав би прийти лист на пошту, і в тому листі були реквізити на сплату сертифікату. Вам потрібно знайти цей лист. Можете перевірити вкладку «Спам» і знайти реквізити, оплатити сертифікат та надіслати скріншот на пошту, з якої було отримано повідомлення. Потім, коли ви сплатили вже за сертифікат, наступним кроком є виконання тесту, тобто це є обов'язковим. Після закінчення вебінару протягом 24 годин вам буде надіслано на пошту посилання на тест. Вам потрібно виконати тест та отримати 80% правильних відповідей, і тоді ви отримаєте сертифікат. Але кількість спроб не обмежена, і тому ви можете декілька разів спробувати, ще раз прочитати статтю, яку вам буде надіслано після нашого вебінару, і потім вже скласти тест. Отже, я думаю, що це зрозуміло, і я думаю, що ми можемо вже починати наш вебінар. So, as I've mentioned, the topic of today's webinar is teaching vocabulary online and using different digital tools to enrich our students' vocabulary. And I would like to start with some statistics just to broaden our horizons and share some information with you. So, according to some surveys, according to some data collected by scientists, the minimum number of words that a learner should know to comprehend English is 5,000 words. But the learner should know at least 1,000 words to understand at 80% of the language surrounding you, meaning the language in daily situations, like the phrases and everything that people say around us. I'm not talking about some business meetings or some events, some serious meetings, serious events that require some special language, yes, specific language. I'm talking about our routines, daily situations, and daily phrases that we use in real life. So according to this, to different surveys, 1,000 words is enough for a learner to understand what is happening, to understand the language, to understand what people are saying around them. And another survey shows that an adult language learner understands an average number of 4,500 words, which is approximately equals the number of words necessary to comprehend English at a normal level. So this statistics shows us and gives us understanding of how important the vocabulary is, that it helps us not only to communicate with other people, but also to understand them, to comprehend what others are saying. So that is why I suggest that we look at the agenda of today's webinar in order to understand what we're going to talk about. So we will start by talking about the challenges that arise while teaching vocabulary, and I will suggest some solutions on how to overcome them. Then we will move on to talking about vocabulary itself, the importance of it, and what exactly we teach when we teach vocabulary. So we will discuss different aspects of vocabulary and the stages of a vocabulary lesson and what to do at each stage of the lesson. After that, I will offer some strategies for teaching vocabulary online, and we will finish our webinar with a discussion, with a review, to be precise, of some new digital tools that we can use to enrich students' vocabulary. So, as I mentioned, that vocabulary is really important, but when we teach vocabulary, we face a set of challenges because our students come from different language backgrounds, they have different learning styles, and if we teach in online settings, another problem might be that we might have connection issues and so on. So let's look at some challenges that arise and what we can do to optimize this the process of teaching vocabulary online. So the first challenge that we might face is student engagement. So when we provide students with vocabulary lists or simply give them the tasks to complete in their course books, our students get bored with time. So these activities don't catch their attention. They don't make them excited because it becomes a routine. Our students know what to do. It's the same again and again. So it's not that interesting. And our students become reluctant. Our students become bored. So what we can do? The solution to this problem would be incorporating different interactive activities that allow students to use new words in context. By doing it, we can keep our students involved and we can spark their interest. So try to bring variety to your lessons, add different games, vocabulary games, quizzes, quests, some scavenger hunts, or maybe some brainstorming activities or tasks where your students need to use their critical thinking. They need to use their creativity, think out of the box, make this learning process more interesting. Yeah, provide some elements of discovery in order to engage your students. The next challenge that occurs on our way to teaching vocabulary is the problem with retention. And by that, I mean that our students often struggle to retain the words which they have just learned. So let's say you had a lesson, and during that lesson, you learned 10 words. But then a few days later, the students came to your lesson again and they didn't remember anything that you had learned before. So they couldn't recall any of the information because they didn't have any practice, and and for some reason they didn't do any exercises at home, or the teacher didn't give any exercises to practice. So as a result, they couldn't recall these words. That is because without reinforcement and practice, the words can easily be forgotten. So our task as teachers is to integrate regular vocabulary review activities into our lessons. And I think it applies not only to vocabulary, but also to grammar. But since we're talking about vocabulary today, we will be talking about what we can do to help our students remember the vocabulary better. So when you start the lesson, usually at the beginning of the lesson, we have warm up. So during this warm up stage, you can add the tasks for revision of the previous topic to remind them of the words that they have learned, to practice, to provide this reinforcement, to provide this continuous revision. It can be done in the way of online game with the help of flashcards or quizzes to reinforce the new words. So, and I'd like to show you this picture. This picture shows how our students perceive the information and how they learn it. So we have two types of learning: passive learning and active learning. And passive learning happens when our students listen to lectures or audios, when they read and when they see what is being demonstrated to them, while active learning happens during discussions, during some practice tasks, and when students teach students. So the best way to help our students retain the words is to provide them provide them with more practice. So you can tell them to help each other, to explain the words each other, to teach each other, give them more tasks for discussion, and encourage them to use these words while answering these questions or while coming up with some ideas. So try to make your students active learners, not passive learners. The next problem that we face is connected with contextual understanding. So by contextual understanding, I mean the ability to comprehend and interpret information within its relevant circumstances. So we get a full picture of the situation, of the environment, people that surround us, emotions that they have. We can see what's happening, and then we can understand how we can use this word in a particular situation. And the problem that our students face is that when they memorize the word without understanding of the context, it can lead to difficulties, it can lead to confusion, and in future they might use these words in a wrong context in different situations, and others might not understand them. So the solution to this problem would be to teach vocabulary in context by providing real-life examples and visual aids to help students clarify word meanings, to help them see how these words, these phrases can be used in context, in real life situations. Okay, let's move on. And the next problem, another problem that our students face is connected with vocabulary size, because the size of the English vocabulary can be overwhelming for learners, because the English language consists of a huge number of words, and sometimes our students become confused what words they need to learn, what to start with, and sometimes they start learning everything they see, and as a result, they cannot retain these words, as I mentioned. They cannot remember them and use them correctly, or sometimes we as teachers get confused and cannot decide which words to teach to our students, how to choose the appropriate word list, and what can we do to teach the right vocabulary to our students. So let's see what we can do. Uh, Firstly, we need to focus on teaching high-frequency words. So the words that are most popular, most used, and the words that are relevant to students' needs and interest, the words that are relevant to their level. So you can't be teaching a student of level A1 the words from level B2. So you need to find the words according to your students' capabilities, abilities, and level. And of course, then you just gradually expand this vocabulary, these words to more specialized or less commonly used vocabulary as you move further, as your students' levels upgrade and your students' abilities develop. Okay, and one more problem that our students uh, face, and we as teachers might also face while teaching vocabulary online, is the problem of teaching word relationships, especially such words as homophones or homographs and so on. So these words, these groups of words can present challenges in comprehension, and our students might be confused if they simply hear this word without the context. They might not understand what word exactly you're talking about, yeah, because this word might have several meanings, or this word might sound the same, but it has a different spelling, or it has the same spelling, but it sounds differently. Yeah, so if we look at this picture, we can clearly see that the word here is bad, but it has different meanings depending on the context. So what we can do? Uh, we need to teach words in groups or clusters based on related meanings, the word families, or some thematic connections. In such way, we will help students grasp these relationships between words and expand their vocabulary more efficiently. So if you teach the word bat as a sport equipment, yeah, so I think it's better to teach it in the context of talking about different sports. Yeah, if you teach the word bat as an animal or so on, so then it would be in the context of talking about animals or talking about some mystics, some creatures. Yeah, if you're talking about vampires, this word can also be relevant and so on. And uh, another problem, which I have already mentioned, is connected with different learning styles. The problem is that our students have different learning styles. Yeah, and our task is to identify these learning styles. Some students prefer visual aids, others prefer for others, it is better to learn through listening or uh, by doing some crafts. So our task is to identify what learning styles our students have and design activities according to these learning styles. We need to vary teaching techniques and materials by using videos, songs, games. So we need to combine the elements of all the learning styles based on the surveys that you will conduct at the beginning of the course to identify your students' learning styles, and then you combine the elements from all the learning styles and integrate them into your lessons in order to engage students and make the learning process more enjoyable. So these are the challenges, like the most frequent challenges that we face, and some solutions that I suggested, but in case you have any other recommendations or solutions to these problems, you're free to write in chat and share them with your colleagues. And we are moving on to vocabulary itself, and we will talk about the meanings, the importance, and the aspects of vocabulary. So, Vocabulary, when we talk about vocabulary, we refer to the set of words that a person knows and understands in a particular language. So the vocabulary includes not only the words and phrases, but also idioms and expressions that are used in various contexts. And as I mentioned before, vocabulary is the means of communication and comprehension. And uh, I have one short quiz for you. So when we teach vocabulary to our students, we also need to teach different aspects of vocabulary to make the process more efficient. So let's look at these three letters, and I will give you just 30 seconds to write in chat what uh, these letters mean. What do they stand for? So write in chat what these letters stand for. In context of teaching vocabulary. Okay, so we have MFP. Letter M stands for meaning, the meaning of the word. So when it comes to vocabulary, monolingual dictionaries can be a useful source of meaning. So you can use these dictionaries in class to check the meaning, to work with the meaning, with the definitions of the words. Uh, uh, just a second. Yeah, I have some problems with the video. Just a second. Yeah. So when we talk about the meaning, the best way to check the meaning, so you have introduced the meanings with the help of dictionaries, and now you need to check students' understanding of the meaning. You can do it with the help of CCQs, concept checking questions, the questions that we ask in order to understand if our students got the meaning of the word and they know how to use it correctly. So let's look at this example. Our target vocabulary is the word shoplifting. And on my screen, you can see the questions that we can ask to check if our students understand the meaning of this word. So we can ask the questions such as, do you pay for these or you steal? Like if you shoplift, do you pay for these or you steal it? So the students say, we steal it. And then we say, so if you steal it, is it a crime? Yes. And where does it happen? At the shop, yeah, for example. So in such way, you make sure that the students really understand the word. But my advice is when you work with the meaning, try not to use translation dictionaries. Try to introduce the meaning of the word with the help of definitions, not with the help of translation. But of course, if you have low levels or the students still struggle with understanding the word, then of course you can introduce the translation of the word. Okay. Now let's move on to the next letter, which is F, and it stands for form. The form refers to how our target language is written. So when it comes to learning new words, it's important for students to know their spelling, plural, whether the word has any plural form, the collocations, and its grammatical behavior, among other things. Yeah, a grammatical behavior in a sentence. Yeah, how it collocates and so on. So let's look at so we can see some examples. So we have the word police, and we know that police always comes with a plural form, while the word news always has the singular form of the verb after. Yeah, so these are some moments, some details that we need to introduce, that we need to explain to our students if we want them to use the word correctly. So another example would be the word library. And while working on the form, we need to mention that library is a noun. So we need to mention the part of speech, that it is countable, so it can have a plural form. And we can suggest some collocations. For example, library book, or go to the library, or something like this, some common collocations. And of course, you can provide the examples of sentences, how this word is used in a sentence. And last one would be P, which is pronunciation. And here we work with different aspects of pronunciation, depending on the level of students, of course, depending on the word that you're teaching. So it can be word stress, it can be pronunciation of some individual sounds, sentence stress, if you have some phrases or idioms and so on, and it can be connected speech. So let's look at the example of one word and how we need to work with, how we need to introduce this word and work with this word according to this MVP approach. So our target language is the adjective awful. Firstly, we need to set the context. We need to introduce this word to our students. It can be done with the help of pictures, with the help of audio, text, or a sentence. So you can see the sentence on the board. I will read it. I feel awful today. My back and my head hurt really bad. So we have set the context. The next thing that we need to do is to check the understanding of the meaning. And we will do it by asking some concept checking questions, CCQs. So these are some questions that we can ask. Do I have some problems with my health? If I have problems, do I feel good or bad? And does awful mean bad? So instead of simply giving the definition to our students, we ask some CCQs to get the information from them and to help our students understand the meaning. Then we need to work on pronunciation, and we need to teach our students how to pronounce this word, and we can introduce the pronunciation, different variants of pronouncing the words in British English and in American English, yeah, and work with this difference. And we also need to add that this word has two syllables and that the stress is on the first syllable, and we need to practice the word stress. And the last thing that we need to do is to work with the form. We need to mention that the word adjective, excuse me, that the word awful is adjective, and it can be used before a noun or after linking word. So this is how we work with vocabulary and how we introduce it according to MVP approach. So, and since we have already started talking about introducing vocabulary, I will share these stages of teaching vocabulary, and we will talk about what we do at each stage of the lesson. So the first stage of a vocabulary lesson is usually a warm-up or a lead-in to a new topic. If it's a warm-up, if it's not a first lesson, yeah, of the unit, then during warm-up, we need to have a revision or a reminder of a previous lexical topic. So it can be a board game, or it can be an online game, or it can be a discussion, but this warm-up should have some communicative purpose. Your students need to speak and practice how to use the words, the vocabulary in speech, not only in a written form. Yeah? And if it's a lead-in, the aim of this stage is to help our students, is to get our students' attention, draw their attention to a new topic, activate their schemata, and brainstorm some ideas about new topic. The next stage is vocabulary presentation. So during this stage, the teacher introduces new words in context to provide meaningful exposure. So it means that you can use a text to introduce the words. You can use an audio, a video to introduce the words. You can use you can be a dialect, but you need to provide the words in context so that your students can understand why you're learning these words and what meaning they have, what value they have. The next stage, after introducing the context, after presenting the vocabulary to our students, would be checking their understanding. And this is exactly when we work on MFP, meaning, form, and pronunciation. So we clarify the form, we check the meaning with the help of concept checking questions, and we drill the pronunciation. After that, we move on to controlled practice. At this stage of the lesson, students work individually or in small groups. The focus here is on one language problem. This stage requires lots of error correction, and tasks usually have one correct answer, and they're accuracy-based tasks. So the aim is to help our students use the words correctly in sentences, yeah, in a restricted context. Then we have, after our students have received enough practice, we move on to freer practice production, where the focus is on fluency. So here students try to apply the language. They have some discussion, or they create some project with using new vocabulary, and the teacher doesn't interrupt the students and provides feedback and error correction after the activity has been finished. And the last stage is usually feedback. So teacher praises students, comments on good language, and analyzes the mistakes with the class. We can also have the review, but as I mentioned, it can be done as a part of warm-up, or it can be given for homework. So for your students to revise the words at home and to reinforce their knowledge at home as a part of homework. And there are some additional stages that you can add depending on what skills you choose to practice along with your vocabulary, how you choose to introduce the vocabulary. It can be reading stage if you choose to introduce the vocabulary through text, or listening if you choose to come up with an audio or video. And you should also add some pronunciation work or icebreaker if it's a first lesson. So this is how this is the structure of vocabulary lesson and the stages that we have during a vocabulary lesson. And now I would like to talk about different strategies that we can use to teach vocabulary. So when it comes to teaching vocabulary, teachers often have such questions as how to begin teaching vocabulary, what to start with, how to practice MFP online, and how to enhance students' vocabulary. So I have come up with some strategies that can be really useful. And we will start with what we can do to begin teaching vocabulary. How can we recommendation is to start with mind maps. So mind maps help students brainstorm ideas, organize their thoughts, and revise new vocabulary. You can use mind maps as a lead-in to the topic. This is when you get started. When you get started, you can use mind maps during reading or listening activities, and then your students can add new words that they have, the words that they come across while reading or listening to the mind map, or it can be done as a homework, as a pre-lesson activity, like preparation for the lesson. You can encourage your students to add some examples of or pictures of words that they remember on this topic. So my suggestions of the tools that you can use to create mind maps with your students, you can see these suggestions on the screen. So it can be Canva, it can be MindMeister and Coggle. So all of these resources are free, so you can use them during your lessons with your students. The next one, how can we work on MVP online? So let's start with meaning. If you want to introduce the meaning and check the meaning of the words, you can use a video clip or an image to introduce the meaning, and you can refer students to the different online dictionaries to check the meaning of the words. Dictionaries can be really useful because they provide the definition, they provide the examples, and you can actually use the dictionary to work not only on the meaning, but also on the form and pronunciation. Moving on to the form. So to work on the form, you can use online flashcards on Quizlet or Wordwall or get fill exercises to practice the form. And as for pronunciation, as I mentioned, you can use different online dictionaries and ask your students to listen to the pronunciation and to repeat after the audio. If you use Cambridge Dictionary, it provides audios from British English and American English. So your students can compare how the words are pronounced in different like in British English and in American English. And as an alternative, if you want to have more practice and work more on pronunciation, you can have students watch short videos on play phrase and get acquainted with accent peculiarities in English. So play phrase is a website that includes different video clips from different movies, TV series, and so on. And you just need to write the phrase that you want to listen it to, and it will suggest a list of video clips that include this phrase. So you can play these video clips and have your students repeat the phrase with the correct intonation, with the correct accent, for example. Okay, let's move on. And what can we do? So we have we have started. We have introduced the vocabulary. We have brainstormed some ideas. We have worked on the meaning form and pronunciation online. We know how to do it. And now we need to move further. We want to extend our students' vocabulary, yeah, and provide them with more opportunities. So to do that, we can use collocation dictionaries. So these dictionaries help learners understand how words naturally combine and they help learners to sound more natural and fluid. So we know that there are some words that have like a particular set phrase. They cannot be used with some other words. So with the help of collocation dictionaries, your students get a chance to find out about it and to learn how to combine the words. For example, we can only say make a decision and we cannot say do a decision. Yeah. So you can use such collocation dictionaries as Word Reference and the Oxford Collocation Dictionary to introduce the collocations and to help your students extend their vocabulary, because they can see some phrases, different phrases, how they're combined, what prepositions they can use, what verbs they can use, what adjectives they can use, and they can refer to the dictionary while writing essays or while creating a presentation or even during speaking activities if they have time. Okay, and um, I would like to show you some new digital tools that you can use to enrich your students' vocabulary. So when we use digital tools, we simplify the process of language acquisition. With the help of these digital tools, teachers can build students' vocabulary, consolidate their knowledge, provide continuous revision, and of course, make the lessons more interesting and enjoyable. So I have um, I have categorized these tools into three categories. So the tools that we can use to create digital flashcards, the tools that can be used for building vocabulary, and some tools where our students can play games. So let's look at the websites and platforms where we can create interactive flashcards. So, interactive flashcards help our students memorize the words. And on my screen, you can see two websites. The first is Anki, but it is this website, this resource has only mobile version. So a mobile or a desktop version. So there is no web version, but your students can, or you can download it on your phone or on your computer and create these flashcards. As for Brainscape, it has a web version, so you don't need to download anything, and it's easy to create the flashcards. So these platforms use spaced repetition, which means that if your students spend more time on one card, this card will be shown to them again in order for them to revise this card and practice this card one more time. These platforms allow teachers to track students' progress, and educators can also search for different cards or create their own. As for Brainscape, it even has a list, different lists of flashcards depending on your purpose. And I'm not talking only about English. It has flashcards on different subjects, on different topics. So if you use English to learn different subjects so if you have clear lessons with your students, you can use Brainscape to introduce some other topics in English, yeah, to learn, to teach science in English, to teach geography in English, and so on. The next category is vocabulary building. And when we use interactive vocabulary building platforms, they help our students learn the words. So on my screen, you can see two platforms. The first is Words Code. The second one is vocabulary.com. So the platforms offer vocabulary lists to students on different topics. So if you have difficulties coming up with some vocabulary list, if you cannot choose what words to teach to your students, or you have a particular purpose. Yeah, you want to make a theme-based lesson, yeah, on a particular topic, but you cannot come up with the words. You can refer to these websites, search for the topics, and find the vocabulary lists on different topics and different levels. These platforms also offer sentence examples, quizzes, and games to practice the words. As for Words Coach, it also has such features as word of the day, word of the week, idiom of the day, idiom of the month. So the platforms offer different features that can be really useful for learning English. You can use these digital tools while working on FFP, while working on meaning, form, and pronunciation, or while speaking, writing activities to help your students extend their vocabulary. So you can introduce these websites to your students and encourage them to refer to them if they struggle with the vocabulary, if they need some extra vocabulary, if they cannot come up with an idiom, they need an idiom, they cannot find it, or they don't know how to use the word in context, they can write the topic and it will offer some examples of sentences on a particular topic. And let's talk about the games. Usually we use the games, we add the games to our lessons to spark our students' interest, to show that learning vocabulary can be really interesting and exciting, that it is not boring and you can have fun. So let's look at some examples of websites and resources that you can use to teach vocabulary. So the first tool here is No Word. It's a website that challenges students to choose the correct option to write down. You can either choose multiple choice and your students will have options to choose from, or you can choose classic game and then your students will have a definition and they'll have to type the word. But if you decide to use this resource in class, make sure that the words that you add to this website, to this platform, are the ones that you have learned with your students, otherwise they will not guess. So this resource can be used during controlled practice activities or for revision, for additional practice as a warm-up, and so on. Another resource here, I guess it's a discovery. It's something that I have recently discovered, and I myself spent quite a lot of time playing the games here because it's really fun and it's also useful. So the resource is called Free Rise. It's just like a website that allows students to revise, to check their knowledge, reinforce their knowledge, and revise what they have already learned. So you cannot create anything. You cannot create your own games, but you can play these games. So the website has different categories. So it's English vocabulary, English spelling, grammar, English proverbs, and root words. So we are talking about vocabulary. I have chosen vocabulary, and the aim of the game is to choose the correct meaning of the word. Yeah, based on everything that we have learned, or the general vocabulary. So, and when the students answer correctly, they donate rice to some organizations. So these games have some purpose, and you can tell your students that not only they play the games, they practice English, they check their knowledge, but also they do something good. They do good things. They donate rice to African countries. So this website is such a discovery, and you can use it with your students. And I think that they will like it. You can choose different categories. So, as a conclusion, I would like to say that the most important thing is to address your students' needs, is to pay attention to their learning styles and to their interests and needs, and design your lesson according to your students' needs, according to what they prefer. So I've been talking about it before, that it's important to conduct needs analysis, and it will give us understanding of what to do next. So if you conduct needs analysis, you will understand some background information. It will help you to uh, understand your students' learning styles, and then it will be easier for you to choose the right activities, to choose the appropriate vocabulary, and provide effective learning process. So that's it for today. I wish you luck, and I hope that this webinar was useful and that you will use some of the tools in your lessons, and you will integrate the strategies that I have shared with you into your lessons. So have a nice evening.